Hi, I'm Kimberly. Welcome back to the Success Series Talks. Talks designed to help you get what you want out of life. Remember to listen, take notes, and most importantly, act. John C. Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Success depends on leadership. I have long loved sports. I love playing them, watching them, and even watching movies about them. There are so many lessons to be learned from them. Some of the lessons that can be learned are the importance of leadership and how it affects a team. One lesson that I learned came from a movie called Remember the Titans. For those of you who haven't seen this movie, it is about a football team in the South in the 1970s. It was during a time when they were trying to desegregate the South. There was a high school that was chosen to start mixing blacks and whites. A lot of people weren't very happy about it. Then, to make matters worse, this school that had been all white with a football team and coach that was phenomenal found out that there would be a black head football coach, and the white coach was going to be the assistant. This made a lot of people even angrier, and at first the white coach wasn't even sure that he was going to stay around because he was so mad, but he finally decided that he would. The black coach now had to figure out how to merge these two groups of people together, two groups who hated each other. The white players didn't want the blacks at their school, and the blacks didn't even want to be there. Can you imagine the huge burden he had upon him? Now, what both of these coaches did demonstrated leadership, but the scene I want to talk about is actually between two of the players. If you remember, there's a scene between Julius and Gary. Gary is the team captain and is white. They had been at a football camp and their coach had been running them hard because they hadn't been meshing and playing like a team. Well, there comes a point where these two come together, and Gary was tired of having to do extra running. Gary asked Julius why he wasn't doing his part on the team. Julius throws right back at him that he didn't see him and his white boys doing their jobs, so why should he? Julius says, "You're the captain of the team, right?" To which Gary replies, "Right." Then he says, "The captain is supposed to be the leader, right?" Gary says, "Right." Julius then tells Gary that if he is the captain and the leader, then he should start taking charge and making sure that everyone plays their part and that it isn't just expected of a few people. And until then, he is just going to look out for himself. Gary gets mad and says, "That is the worst attitude I ever heard." And Julius looks at him and says what I think is one of the most important principles in the movie. Attitude reflects leadership, Captain. Think for a moment how true that is and how important it is. If you are a leader, how is the attitude of those around you? If attitude reflects leadership, then this would give us a measuring stick for any company in the world. If the team members have good attitudes, then the leadership is good. If they don't, then someone better fix the leadership. Now, some may be thinking, well, a leader can't control everyone in the business. Some people may just not have good attitudes, but that doesn't have anything to do with being the leader. Actually, it does. A good leader will make sure that each of his people is put into a position that utilizes their talents and challenges them. If for some reason they are someone who just isn't meshing and upholding the standards of the company, then a good leader will let that person go and replace them with someone who does. Good leaders make the difficult, essential decisions. Sometimes I think we look at leadership as just a position, as if it isn't any different than the title of doctor, lawyer, teacher, baker, clerk, etc. However, the title leader isn't about position at all. It is different than the other titles that people get. Someone can be a baker or doctor and still be a leader. So what does it take to be a great leader? I'm going to talk about two things that I believe determines a leader. Let me kick these off with a thought for you. Leadership is where skill and character meet. I want to change this slightly though. You see, we live in a world where some people become leaders without character. Really good leaders. They lead millions of people into dark places. Their abilities make them great, kind of like Hitler. However, they have no character. So I want to change what I said before. Someone who simply has skill is most likely a manager or a dictator. People will follow them and probably do what they say. But how many would follow them if they only asked? So let's try this instead. Servant leadership is where skill and character meet. Servant leadership is the only leadership worth focusing on or trying to emulate. A servant leader will cause important change to happen. They will elevate those around them and improve everyone they meet. A servant leader is the type of person who does something because it is right, not because it is popular, will win them an election, or make them more money. Though most people would find that if they focused on becoming this type of leader, they would have the influence and money that they so desired. Let's talk about character first, because I believe it is the most important. You cannot build a strong organization unless people know that they can trust you. If you make promises that you never keep, your team will eventually come to know that it doesn't matter whether you tell them something or not. It still won't happen. Why should they perform if you don't come through on your part? If you set a standard in your organization of cutting corners, fudging numbers slightly, or lying to make your position seem better, then people in your organization will see that and they will start to copy you. The funny thing is, if someone is dishonest in one area of their life or with one person, you can bet that will carry over to other parts. If you teach the members in your organization to be dishonest, can you really be shocked when they are dishonest with you? It is one of those things that can come back and bite you hard. Now, some people may wonder, what exactly is character? Is it just being honest, or does it go deeper? Let me give you an example. Let's say that you're in a group of people and they start gossiping about someone else. You say to yourself, that isn't right, and so you don't join in. That is integrity. Good job. You didn't further the gossip. However, character takes it a step further. Character says that it isn't just enough to do what is right, but that you should make things right. Character would jump in and say something nice about the person. Integrity is doing the right thing, but character is who you are or the condition of your heart. A servant leader is a servant. This means they serve everyone around them. They don't just do the right thing when it is easy or convenient. They don't order others around. Rather, they show by example how something is done. Nothing in the job description or list of responsibilities required by someone else is beneath them. I recently read the story of a company owner. There was a day when they were short-staffed at a huge grand opening event, and suddenly he rolled up his sleeves and started to help. Someone nearby made a comment about how they didn't think the leader should be doing such work and that it was beneath him. But he believed that the leader should be the first one to jump in. He set an example that took his organization beyond average and into excellence. You can be a servant leader in any aspect of your life. If you are a parent, before just ordering your kids around all the time, ask yourself if they ever see you do the things you are expecting them to do. Or do you just figure that you had to do this when you were a kid and now you are an adult, and so it is your turn to boss someone around? Bossing someone around and getting them to do it doesn't make you a leader, and probably won't get you very good results either. If you are a coach, do you stay in shape with your team? You're going to be asking them to do sprints and other taxing exercises. Are you yourself in shape, or do they know that you couldn't possibly do what you are asking them to do? They will respond better if they know you would do it too. Granted, you may not be as fast or in as good a shape as them, and that's okay. But the mere fact that you run with them, no matter how far behind, will have a greater influence on them trying harder when you ask something of them. And remember the Titans, the coaches went on mile runs too. How about the CEO of a company? If you expect something, are you living up to the expectations you set? Do you ever go back and try making those sales calls and just refresh to make sure that what you are teaching them is still valid? You see, often we become so removed from the things that we ask people to do that we sometimes forget how hard something is, or even if what we ask is realistic or beneficial. However, if you are willing to do what you ask at least every once in a while, then others around you will do so without complaint. I've been standing next to people before when a leader has given out demands that seemed a bit over the top, and I heard someone say, I'd like to see him do what he is asking in the time frame he is asking us to do it in. You won't get responses like that if you are a leader with character. Attitude reflects leadership. You don't have to be the best at everything in order to be a servant leader. As a matter of fact, a servant leader will surround him or herself with people who are the best in some area. You want to have people be better than you in something, because if you are the best at everything in the company, then chances are you have a mediocre company because you can't be perfect. A servant leader lets go of ego. They don't think it is all about them and how they look. They want to give credit to the people around them. Sincere compliments will cause people to want to work harder and to improve. A servant leader will bring out the best in others by not worrying about if someone had a better idea or not. A good team with talented people on it also reflects leadership. Another thing that is important is skill. Most people aren't born with natural leadership abilities that are just perfect. Some people may have some natural abilities and aptitudes that can help them to achieve great results. However, without fine-tuning those abilities, they won't become as good of a leader as they could have. A servant leader is always seeking to improve. They will welcome feedback from their teams, knowing that this is the way to become the best. As a teacher, I used to periodically pass out some note cards to my students, and then I told them that there were 3 things I wanted them to put on the cards. I told them if they wanted to, they could put their names on it, but it was not a requirement. I then wrote on the board, number 1, name one thing you really like that I do in this class. Number 2, name one thing that you really hate that I do in this class. I had to remind them on this one that putting I hate homework or tests was futile since there was a chance there would be some of that. I wasn't a big fan of homework, so I already only gave what I thought had a true purpose. I told them instead to focus on things that I could fix about how I taught, or activities we did in class, or even how I could improve homework assignments to make them more worthwhile for them. Number 3, name one thing you really wish I would start doing that you have seen other teachers do. I didn't do this because I thought I could possibly change and implement everything every student wrote. However, I noticed that usually in a class of 30, about 20 to 25 would have similar answers to the first 2 questions. That was an area I either knew I needed to improve on or keep doing and not let slide. Then under the ones where they listed things other teachers did, I usually picked a couple of the things written to start working on. I usually did this exercise twice during a school year, once after I'd been there for about 4 to 6 weeks and once again about 4 months later. I knew I wasn't perfect, and I knew skill was essential for me to be successful. It is the same way with servant leadership. Have you ever asked the people you work with how you could better help them be successful? If you started working on what they said, can you imagine how it would turn things around? What if you asked them if there was something you were doing that was hindering the success of the company, or if there was a weakness that made people afraid to talk to you? Now, the best way to do this is to do it anonymously, because most people are afraid to be honest if they think there is any chance of repercussions. And this is one activity where you want total honesty. Once you learn of your weaknesses and strengths, then consciously keep doing your strengths and consciously work on your weaknesses. Read a book by someone whose strengths is your weaknesses and use the principles they talk about to help you. You could attend a conference or seminar. A lot of these will not only lecture, but actually have activities for you to do that will help you to change these things. Also, if you find a method or program particularly helpful, then start listening to the audios they put out or invest in their programs and get access to that information and then apply it so you can really step up your game in that area of your life. Besides improving your skill in leadership, a servant leader improves their abilities and knowledge in the area they work in. If you are a leader in the engineering field, then you want to stay on top of the latest advancements. You should be reading at least 1 book a month in your area of expertise to help keep you on top of your game. And then no matter what your position is, you should be practicing some of those skills. Don't let them become rusty just because you don't have to use them all day anymore. Besides, if you want the people you work with to also be consistently improving, you will need to set the example. A servant leader sets the attitude. They set the stage for whatever people will strive for. If others see you learning and progressing, they will be more likely to participate in a personal or professional development program. I once received some books and other tools as part of a program from a man who had never opened them. It was a program from Stephen R. Covey. This same person also gave me several other books that he had received that he was supposed to read and go through as part of his position at his job. But each time that he handed me one, they were clearly unread. Later, I had a discussion with someone about a book they were reading, and she told me she was just skimming because she had other things that were more important. It was a book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. The person was a principal, and the school district had asked them to read it as part of her position. I told her it was an amazing book and started discussing it. I also gave her some other books that were amazing, and come to find out some of those were also books that had been recommended that she had not read. She said that maybe she would have to look into really reading them. Now, I don't know what made these two people decide not to use what had been provided to them. The interesting thing about both is that they lacked in leadership skills, and it was obvious by the way others around them responded to them that they needed to learn the skills to become a servant leader. Yet, they rejected the very books written by people who could help them. Now, maybe their supervisors didn't set a good example, and so they figured, why should they spend their time reading all this if no one else did? That was Julius's attitude. If the leader doesn't, then why should I? If you happen to be listening to this, and you have a person in a leadership position who isn't a servant and doesn't lead by example, choose to be that person. No one is forcing you to stay mediocre. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend that. Choose to start reading and developing yourself and ask others around you how you can improve and become a servant leader. Someone sooner or later will notice it, and you will find yourself having a higher position. Don't allow yourself to be kept down because someone else is lacking. These are just a few suggestions that can make a big difference to those above you in positions and to those below you. Bad attitude reflects bad leadership, and good attitude reflects servant leadership. And servant leadership is where character and skill meet. Remember, it is the only form of leadership worth trying to develop. Go out there and be a servant leader. Thanks for listening, and make it a great day.